What's going on, Bills fans? Welcome into another Friday night edition of Triple Coverage Podcast on the Built-in Buffalo Podcast Network. Shout out to our sponsors, Buffalo Belia Sports and More, who's out at the big show with TSC right now. So stop by and see them over there. And of course, Monster Energy Drink, the official energy partner of Built-in Buffalo. It's Dolphins week, guys, and the Bills are rolling right now. It feels really good to be here talking about this team at this moment in the season, and can go a lot of different ways from here. But we're going to talk about how we think it's going to go in week 9 and stay in the moment and not get too far ahead of ourselves. So how are we doing on this fine Friday night?
Doing well. I know you guys are still kind of struggling with the whole Yankees loss, but I know we talked about it a little bit last week, but yeah, good to be now onto the football season, fully football season for you guys. I know that you guys were still paying attention to baseball, like I said, but yeah, got the Dolphins coming in and excited.
Fully football season. You got college basketball starting on Monday. That's equally as exciting. And
Syracuse
you
Orange
kind of
about
laughed
to
at us
win it.
for the Yankees losing a little bit, but gotta love all the Yankee haters who laugh when the Yankees lose when their teams didn't make it in the first place. But no, doing well. It was a tough loss on Wednesday, as Shoop said. But yeah, excited to talk about the Bills. They still give me some hope for the rest of the season. They're playing really well. And yeah, I got a rivalry game at home this weekend. And Tua will be playing, which I think, the last time we saw him, I think we're all happy that he's just healthy and playing again. So that's good to see.
Indeed. Yeah, so we're going to go right into it here with quick thoughts. And Mike Edwards requested a trade. Give me your quick thoughts. I'm going to start with Scott this time.
Yeah, so was it like formally requested? I just saw that he was like available. So I don't know like how like aggressive he is being about it, but yeah, it definitely doesn't surprise me that he wants to get traded. I think he was brought in with the assumption that he was going to play a big role in this defense. I think the team had that assumption too, but unfortunately, he just hasn't separated himself from what the Bills have seen out there. And obviously, Taylor Rapp is playing really. You're not going to take him off the field, but you would think that DeMar Hamlin's safety spot was where Mike Edwards really slotted in. Getting hurt in training camp definitely didn't help. He had that hamstring that he was dealing with, so maybe
Right.
he was a little bit slow, like getting the installs, but. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he wanted out, and it also wouldn't surprise me if the Bills, granted that request because he's inactive every game day and he's just, kind of taking up a roster spot to not be there. So we'll see. I think it's just kind of disappointing how it all turned out because they had high hopes for him coming in and, being that dude at safety because, he has that Super Bowl experience with the Chiefs.
Yeah, he did officially request it from the things I'm seeing. So yeah.
Yeah, I believe it was Fowler, ESPN. I'm blanking on his first name.
Yeah, that's where I saw that he
Jeremy.
was available.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he reported it, but yeah, I mean, like Scott said, not really too shocking if that he did request a trade, just because you haven't really seen him on the field, and he liked a tweet, I believe it was a couple of weeks ago, and I know people don't like to talk about social media, but when you like a tweet about somebody saying why isn't Mike Edwards playing, and he likes that tweet, that's a little bit kind of weird for him to like and then continue to not play. So yeah, it's not really a shock to see him request it. I'm not sure what you'd even really be able to get out of him. I saw somebody joking about Mike Edwards and in Miami for Jordan Poyer. Now that would be hilarious if it did happen, but I love Jordan Poyer was my favorite player for the past 7 years or 8 years on this team. But yeah, I think it's past his time, and you're not really then getting anything back for him essentially. So. I wonder what they could get out of him. Maybe a late pick swap would be my guess. It wouldn't be too much, if anything. But yeah, not really too shocked to see if he does get moved. And I'm kind of now curious if he doesn't get moved, if they do end up moving on from him potentially. If he says, "Hey, please just cut me if you're not going to use me." We'll see what happens. That's happened with players before, but we'll see what goes on. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change what we've seen on the football field, at least, because like we said, we haven't seen Mike Edwards on the football field.
Yeah, I'd like to see him on there. Like people are mentioning, you guys mentioned the same with the Super Bowl experience, and I think he still has to have some talent there. I don't think he's just like washed by any means. So it's like, what could it hurt? I mean, there are the incentives that, guys like Kevin Masari are talking about and talking about trying to save some money on the cap or something like that. But like, I don't know what you can really get out of him. Someone's going to be looking for that veteran though. And even if it is, as John suggested, a 5th rounder, Bean
I'll
thrives.
take that.
So it's like, yeah, let's get as many of those as we can and try to load it up. So.
Before we move on, though, here, I just will bring up Joey's question here of what are we on the hook for him? How much should we sign him for? Well,
I got it right here. If you don't,
yeah, I don't. I was going to say I was trying to pull it up here.
Yeah, so his cap hit's $2.8 million. If they cut him, it's $1.6 million in dead cap. So like it's not that big of a contract. $1.6 million is kind of about all we have left against the cap. So they're probably not going to cut him. But yeah, if we were to trade him, like it's not a difficult contract for anybody to take on or anything like that. So his
he's
contract
gone after this year, so he's a free agent.
He's gone after this year
only
anyway.
Deal.
So
mm-hmm.
Right, yeah, like it wouldn't like his no one's going to be afraid of taking on that contract.
Also, no Brandon Bean slander in this chat. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I don't think it gets a miss.
It's probably likely he gets traded if someone offers anything, really. I mean, if someone makes a legit offer for him, I'm sure, like, I don't know what their plan is. And if he's unhappy and thinking he wants to go somewhere else, then it's a good chance that he gets moved.
I will say it is a little bit shocking that they haven't, neither McDermott or Bean have really been vocal about why he hasn't played too much. That's the part that kind of confuses me is, there's been talk about why for the past few weeks why he hasn't been playing or why he hasn't really gotten a big look. And there hasn't really been too many answers from it. And I know that, they're not going to come out and say exactly why, but there's been not really much at all. So I that's really the part that shocks me about the whole Mike Edwards coming in and not really getting a playing time is that there hasn't really been an explanation.
I would assume it's just because he's flat out like not playing well in practice. He's like not beating guys out, and they probably don't want to come out and like it's not necessarily bashing him, but that's essentially what it would be. Like yeah. I would guess they don't just want to be like, yeah, dude's not good. What do you want from us? So
right.
I would assume they're just like, don't say anything. Like if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So I would kind of guess it's that mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone's asking if we would trade him to the Dolphins, I would. As long as the offer's there, I don't care. Like we're 3 games up on the Dolphins, so I mean, especially if we win this week, then and I know a lot of people are putting trade talks on the.
You can fly home with them.
Yeah,
save gas.
Putting trade talks on the back burner right now to see how things play out. But if the Bills win this game Sunday, yeah, we can give the Dolphins Mike Edwards. I don't really think that's going to change their season at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, moving on. We talked about, the trade deadline is Tuesday. Some people are in here looking for Myles Garrett and some other people looking for different things. So Shoop, we'll start with you this time. What do you think about Bean? Is he going to make a move before the deadline? Yes or no? If you have a certain position you want to preface that with, let's hear it. So Bean making a move before the deadline, and if so, where is he going?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think like if that is a move, I think it would be like, oh, Mike Edwards is traded for, it's going to be a pick swap of a 6th and a 7th. Like, I don't think anything major will happen if they make a trade. I think it will be a Mike Edwards trade. I don't think they'll bring anybody else in. I just looking around the league, there's not many people, if anybody, that makes sense, really. When you look at safety, there's not really anybody out there besides maybe 2 guys like Cisco or there's just not really anybody out there money wise that makes sense. Myles Garrett would be awesome. It'd be nice, but you're going to have to give up 3 first-round picks on top of taking on a huge contract so there's a lot that you'd have to give up to get a real impact player. Last year was a little bit different when you made the Rasul Douglas trade because you had a little bit more money that you could work with at that point. They already made a trade, the Cooper trade. The reason it worked out well is because, again, they didn't have to take on a lot of money. So there's just not a lot of players out there that make sense. I don't think, they make a move at linebacker. I think they're set with their guys. They're supposed to get Milano back in late December, or maybe mid-December. Bernard is back again. I know he's battling injuries here and there, but I just don't think I don't think that there's anybody out there that they can make a real good move with. So, I mean, we'll see if they do end up making one, but I don't think that they'll end up making one.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to get Myles Garrett or Max Crosby or any of those guys. Like, it's going to have to be somebody that kind of falls into Bean's lap. Like, he's not going to be as aggressive as he was with Amari Cooper, but maybe a move for a defensive guy like a safety or a D lineman if the price is right and it works out and it's a later pick. But yeah, I don't think Bean's going to be crazy aggressive with anything.
Yeah, I think there's going to be an offer that the Bills will accept for either a player or going out and adding a defensive lineman. Honestly, I think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be necessarily being overly aggressive and adding Myles Garrett, but I think that, someone on the interior, hopefully of the defensive line potentially there would be my pick. I don't necessarily see them adding a safety position. They had the chance to add some more safeties during the offseason and didn't. So I think it's a defensive lineman, and I think there's going to be a move made before the deadline overall. So with that, you got something else?
Yeah, I just want to bring up Joey's comment again. Link to a linebacker from the Raiders. You got to really watch because that was a trade prediction. It was a trade prediction for Robert Spillane. I would love Robert Spillane if they ended up making that move, but a lot of these, it's that time of the year where you're going to start seeing these trades. A lot of them are predictions, and a lot of them are this would make sense for teams. So a lot of them aren't really links to other teams. If they are links, I will say it to anybody, you should look at really the main big guys like Schefter, like those bigger guys if you're going to see a link, because those are the official ones. If they're linked to anybody else, usually it's just hearsay and people trying to get clicks and views, which is exactly what this story ended up being about Robert Spillane to the Bills in a trade prediction. But if that did happen, I would be a fan of it depending on what we'd give up. So
yeah, for sure. And last thing on the quick thoughts is they might mess around and play three linebackers, John, at times. So with Dorian and Matt, and then Terrell Bernard in the middle. We'll see if that actually goes around. But what do you think, guys? What do you think about Dorian Williams when Milano comes back?
I think against the Ravens, we might play three linebackers. Just thinking playoffs, like against the Ravens, three linebackers make sense. Against the Chiefs, probably not. I don't think they'll go a lot of three linebacker stuff even when he is there. So I think Dorian Williams goes back for depth. Matt Milano in the beginning is at least going to be on a pitch count. He's not going to be playing every snap. So, he'll be kind of building his way up to where hopefully by playoffs, it's Milano and Bernard taking damn near 100% of the snaps like it should be. Because even when we're in nickel, like Taron Johnson is so good against the run that it very easily, he's so good against the run that we don't miss out on anything there. So, and we were missing him in that Ravens game. So yeah, I think Dorian Williams goes back for depth, and he got some great experience that he will definitely need in the future.
Yeah, Andrew was there in Seattle with you, Scott. Did you see him? Did you say hi to him?
I might have. I said hi to a lot of people.
Say, Andrew, did you see Scott and say hi to him?
Did you see Scott? He's pretty hard to miss.
This is true.
When it comes to Dorian Williams, I think he'll fit that Tyrell Dodson role from that we were missing, and he's solid against the run. He flies against all over the field. Against the pass is what really kind of hurts him. So I don't think that we'll see a ton of him once both of them are back. We won't see him on every other down, but he'll be a guy that rotates in, and depending on the team, you might see him a little bit more, might see him a little bit less. Like Scott said, with the Ravens, you'll probably see him a little bit more, but a team against the Dolphins, maybe not as much as you might see against maybe a team like the Ravens.
Yeah, no, it's going to be situation dependent. Like I said, I just think that, he'll be a situational player there. And they may also be able to alternate on pure running downs. If they don't go three linebackers, they may throw him in there for his, downhill attacking style and save Matt Milano for more of the pure passing downs, things like that. So it'll just kind of help rotate and keep Milano hopefully healthier and more fresh when he is in the game. So I think the the rotation there helps with his playing time so far. Yeah, let's head on to the first 1 minute. I'm going to go first this week, and then we're going to get into Bills versus Dolphins. We're going to start with the Bills defense on the other side of it. So I'll take over here. All right, this week I'm looking into the NFL power rankings. I see the Bills anywhere from 3 to 5, and I wanted to get y'all's opinion on what you think and where you think the Bills land in the power rankings for the NFL. I think I have them at 3. I like that the Chiefs and the Lions are ranked ahead of them, but I think the way their team is built and the way they're built to keep getting better throughout each week here throughout the season really puts me at ease saying that they're in that 3 spot. I wouldn't be mad if people put them at 4, but I really wouldn't put them below 4. I think they're definitely top 5 easily, but I think in the 3 or 4 spot for me is a good power ranking for them. So let me know what you think in the comments. Would love to hear from you.
Scott, you want to take this one first, or?
Sure. Yeah, I don't really put a whole lot of stock into the power rankings. Like, they change so much week to week just based on how teams look. And, like the Ravens, they're below the Bills in most power rankings, but like they kicked the you-know-what out of us a couple weeks ago. And granted, we weren't healthy and the Ravens just lost to the Browns. But yeah, I would say third is probably right around where they should be. Somewhere in that range. Like, the Chiefs haven't lost the game yet. They have to be number 1. Lions, number 2, probably at that 6-1. And then right after that, you get like us, you get the Packers, you get all those other teams who are in there right around us. So yeah, I don't put tons of stock in them, but yeah, I'd say third makes sense.
Yeah, I would say between 3 to 5, that range. Like I could see people putting the Ravens over them still. I would completely understand that. I know we were talking about before the show. Packers is one that I guess I'll have to watch a little bit more of, but the one I can't really get behind being above the Bills, but they are up there to be talked about. The Texans, I guess, before last night would have been a team that you could have talked about above the Bills, but then they did what they did against the Jets. So, there's a couple teams in there, but I would say that 3 to 5 range, but yeah, I can't put them ahead of KC or Detroit right now.
Right on. Yeah, I dig it. I think that we're all in the same. It's kind of, I'm not going to read too much into them, but I saw the range of where the Bills were and different sites there. So I thought it'd be interesting just to get people's opinions and get where you think the Bills are and how maybe you view power rankings, which everyone's simply saying they don't care, and that's perfectly fine. But I thought it was just an interesting thing for me to see, gauging, because it's power rankings for me are supposed to not take into account necessarily the record so far, and it's like how well the team can be. And one power ranking still has San Francisco second, even though their record's not that great. Their team overall, they've had injuries and maybe get some pieces back here and there, and they might end up being better than their record shows. But at this time, they are where they are. So, but I like where the Bills are at right now so far through 8 games. They've performed well, and they're riding the high of a big win in Seattle. So I'm really hoping to see a good performance this week, and that's going to take us into what's going on this week. So kick it over to you guys for the Bills defense.
Yeah, we're going to start with the defense this week. We talked about the offense first last week, so we're just going to go back and forth each week. But yeah, it's a little bit of a fun topic this week, I think, because the last few weeks with the defense, there hasn't been too much to talk about necessarily. I know Seattle was a little bit more because of the run game, but ended up not having to worry about the run game because Seattle had to throw the ball so early. But yeah, when it comes to the Dolphins, we saw what they did last week, or not last week, last time they played, and they handled Tua pretty well, obviously before he got hurt. But Tua's back this week, and the Dolphins offense actually looked like an NFL team last week a little bit. They still ended up losing, but they actually could put points on the board and move the ball. So that was an improvement for the Miami Dolphins on offense last week. So first question, pretty simple to you guys. With Tua back, which weapon on that offense scares you the most? They obviously got Tyreek Hill. They got Mostert, which I don't know if he's playing, but they got Mostert. They got A.E. Chain, Jonnu Smith, who hates Buffalo, and Jalen Waddle, obviously. So we'll start with you, Lance. Who scares you the most on the Dolphins offense?
Devon Achane definitely had about 150 yards last week, and just 9.7 yards a carry. So just one of those guys that the Bills can have a tendency to struggle defending the run at times. You don't know what run defense is going to show up on Sunday and that kind of thing. It's not going to be too cold, but it's going to be a little bit cooler out there. So hits are going to, feel it a little bit more. I don't have a big concern over it. What really concerns me about A-Chain is in the passing game. I think, those quick hitters, the little screens and things like that have been an Achilles heel of the Bills defense at times. And so the combination of giving up a lot of 10+ yard runs to running backs this season so far and his explosiveness, and then also in the passing game, just not being able to necessarily prevent some yak at times and letting guys kind of get ahead of steam and go forward. That's where the concern comes for me. But I don't necessarily think it's going to be the end of the world. I think they can still win if A-Chain has a good game, but I think that he kind of does become the game breaker for me. Whereas if he does have a big day, that changes it. If he goes out and scores 2 or 3 touchdowns and has 200 all-purpose yards, I think that spells some trouble for the Bills.
Yeah, for me, and A-Chain definitely scares me as well, but a little bit less just because, like, when the Bills played them in week 2, like, he had 96 yards. He had a good game. He had 69 yards receiving, and the Bills blew him out 31-10. So, like, I'm less concerned about the Dolphins' run game because, and honestly, it's kind of the way the Bills' defense is built. Like, we're less worried about teams running it down our throat. Like, we'll tighten it up in the red zone, try to hold them to field goals, like, try to take away the pass. So, for me, it'd be Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle if I can steal 2. I was going to say OBJ, but he doesn't really scare me much anymore. But just because, like, the Bills are historically very good at throwing off the Dolphins' timing. That's what you have to do to beat them. But, like, if Tyreek Hill gets off press coverage, like, no one's catching him. So I'm more worried about that and, like, the big playability there than I am their, like, running it down the field against us, because eventually, like, the Bills are going to make a play. Someone's going to miss a block. There's going to be a holding call. Like, it's going to get, like, slowed down. So I'm more worried about that big playability of Hill and Waddle than I am the run game. And I think the Bills are too, because that's just the way they defend it. Like, they're okay letting the Dolphins get some yards on the ground, but they try to just throw off all timing in the passing game.
Yeah. Before I say mine, I just want to bring up this comment of John of time for Rasul Douglas to get interception. He had one last week, just ended up dropping it. But yeah, it is time for him to get one. But this one's a tough one because A-Chain, I think, will have the best game out of any weapon on that offense, just again due to the fact of how the Bills play the Dolphins. I would say Tyreek Hill. I think he's the most skilled guy on the team for the Dolphins, but the Bills contain him well. I mean, 8 career games against him, he's had 41 yards, 20, 63, 33, 69, 58, 82, and 24. So only one game over 70 yards for him. So they seem to play him well. I'm actually going to go with a guy that I think some guys sleep on when it comes to the Dolphins offense, and I just said he hates Buffalo, and it's Jonnu Smith. Last game, he had 7 targets, caught 6 of them, had for 53 yards. He's not going to put up 5 catches for 150 yards. That's more of Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, right? But he will continue to get those 5 yards, 6 yards, 8 yards, which the Bills have been kind of known that they're the bend don't break defense, right? They might give that up to Jonnu Smith a little bit more. So he's a guy that I think the Bills should watch out for. I don't think he's the most skilled guy on that offense by any means. I don't even think he's the top 4 on that offense skill-wise for weapons, but it's just the way that the Bills play the Dolphins. I think he could end up having a pretty big game and end up making some big catches for him, on top of the fact that he also hates Buffalo, and he's coming to Buffalo, so maybe he'll have a little bit more energy this week than usual. So I'm going to go with Jonnu Smith. Might be a little bit of a weird pick for who scares me the most. But yeah, when it comes to just history of how they play them and history of just the Bills defense, the tight end position for some reason always stands out to me. And against a team like the Dolphins, where they put so much emphasis on stopping Tyreek Hill and stopping Jalen Waddle, that I think it can open things up for Jonnu Smith. So
yeah, I didn't have a clear-cut number one because River Craycraft is questionable with a shoulder. So it's like if River was playing, it could have been my biggest fear.
Yeah.
Is that a real person?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's listed as a shoulder. I think he's coming off IR potentially as a wide receiver. No idea who the guy is, but love the name, so I wanted to shout it out on here.
Well, at the end of the day, though, there's a million guys on that offense that are very skilled, that can make big plays and can beat you. I mean, we just went over at least 4 of them that can beat you there. 3 of them more times really are than not. But we'll move on here to the next question. Terrell Bernard is supposed to play this weekend. He is lined up, so unless there's a setback in the next 48 hours, he will be playing. But yeah, my question to you guys is, we're going to start with you, Scott. How important is it that he is playing in this game, or supposed to play in this game as of now, especially against a team that is as fast as the Miami Dolphins? We just talked about Tyreek Hill. We just talked about Jalen Waddle, even A-Chain. They all have speed. If he was out, how scared would you have been really for the defense against this offense?
I don't know if scared is the right word, but I like it a lot more that he's out there, especially just with how good he is in coverage, how good his instincts are. He's always in the right place. And he got hurt in the Dolphins game in week 2. So I'm sure, he has a little bit of a revenge aspect to that there. So like Balin Spector plays okay when he's out there, but he's just not Terrell Bernard. So especially, against the run, Bernard moves really well side to side. The Dolphins run those toss plays. So he's great at kind of slithering through blocks and making plays side to side. And then, he's great in the pass, like I said. So another guy who's back this week, Von Miller, also very excited for him because, like we said, the Dolphins offense is all timing. So, if he can get to the passer quickly, that just basically blows up everything they're trying
to do. What do you got for us, Lance, for how important is it that Terrell Bernard's playing, and how much does it mean to you for this Bills defense?
It means a ton. Yeah. Heartbeat of the defense, captain, obviously for a reason. I think that it would be, if it's something where he's risking re-injury over and over again and they needed to sit him, I wouldn't be super concerned because this defense has gone out and played well down these guys, without their 2 starting linebackers multiple times this season so far. But I think, with this Dolphins team right now and this game, the way this game sets up, I think it's just much more preferred to have him out there and to be able to, get the calls from him and have everyone, comfortable having his voice there. I think that really does matter a lot. And then obviously his ability to disguise things in coverage is really the one big thing that I like against Tua as well, because Tua is easily fooled, I believe. And, I think that he does it to a lot of different quarterbacks. I think he did it against Stroud and things like that, where he comes off a receiver and goes right to where they're going to throw. So I like having him there to provide that deception once the snap is there. And then, that the skill of getting the ball and bringing down ball carriers is obviously elite. So I like that we're going to have him. And that's, although A-Chain was the weapon that scares me the most, I think, he brings a little bit of a calmness to it, because I think he's a big reason why they can contain those guys and be able to have success this weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a little bit of a different, weirder answer of why it's important that he's out there. Is, at home, it's a division game. This is pretty much do or die for the Dolphins this game. If they lose, they're in huge trouble. I mean, they're already in huge trouble, but this really pretty much seals the deal on their season. We know how loud that stadium can get. We all go to enough games. We know how loud it can get. Having your guy out there, your number one mic, who communication-wise, I think that's where it comes in big, is having Terrell Bernard out there, just being able to control the defense and have your number one guy out there. And like Scott said, Balin Spector's had some good moments. He's been fine. He hasn't been, anything to be like, oh, he's got to get him off the field. Can't not play him. It's just having Terrell Bernard out there to be able to communicate to the safeties, to the corners, to everybody on that defense when changes need to be made, when they see something on the other side of the ball that they say, okay, we're going to make this switch right before the snap. We got to get this communicated. I think that's really the big aspect, because it really can be, even though we're trying to be loud to make the Dolphins offense, kind of go disarray and Tua not be able to hear. It is also something for the defense. We've heard defenders for the Bills say it before, of like, hey, we also got to make sure we're on the same page when it comes to communication. So I think it's really just important in that aspect, as much as it is just being able to stop Devon Achane and being able to play good defense, right? I think it's both both of those aspects of Terrell Bernard being able to play at a high level and being able to be that communicator and be that leader on the defense is just massive. So I think it's really more just the communication aspect that I'm happy that he's going to be out there, because I think, it's going to be loud. It's going to be a loud game for sure. Every Dolphins game is loud. I mean, every game's loud, but every Dolphins game, it can kind of amp it up a little bit more. So,
yeah, I got to be loud enough for me and Scott. Scott's not going to be there, so now I got to pick up his slack and be louder, which is fine. But man,
it's going to be tough.
A couple of games in a row now.
Sometimes I can hear Scott all the way up in the 300s.
I sit in the 300s. That's probably why.
Well, I don't know which side you sit on. So, but yeah, either way, Terrell Bernard, it's going to be good to have him there. We'll do this question before we get to the next one. Which player matchup that are you looking forward to the most? I'm going to just say mine quick. I'm really interested to see just how the Bills play Terrell Bernard, whether it's Benford or not Terrell Bernard, Tyreek Hill, whether it's Benford on him more or Douglas. They'll probably switch it up here and there, but I'm really just interested to see the two cornerback matchups against the two receivers, how they handle those. We'll go with Lance next.
Yeah, I think that seeing Rasul Douglas, seeing if he, I think how he matches up against those guys on the outside is interesting for sure. But I like to see Dorian Williams against Devon Achane. I think that Williams has shown the ability to be juked out of his shoes at times, I think, and Achane being so shifty, I want to see how Dorian maybe is coming along in his discipline and trying to get ball carriers down like that. So I'm going to be watching kind of how Williams plays in the run game and fits those holes.
Yeah, I also think just receivers in the secondary as a whole is really fun because it's a good secondary and it's really good receivers. I'm not going to just copy exactly what Ben said. So I'll say the whole offensive line versus the defensive line because, like I said, like the Dolphins offense is so timing based. And if Tua has time and he can like go through his reads and he can like hit stuff on time, like you're dead. Like he's going to pick you apart. But if you can get him off his spot, if you can put pressure on him, like we saw the Jamarcus Ingram pick six, like he just threw it. Jesus, take the wheel. He just threw the ball to nowhere because he didn't have the time and he lost his composure. So the defensive line can get pressure on Tua, even just make him, a half a second quicker than he wants to be. It's going to throw everything off.
Does Von Miller make the impact there coming back this week, you think?
He definitely can. He should be fresh. He hasn't played in 4 weeks, so maybe we see a few more snaps. But yeah, I want to see Greg Rousseau get some pressure. He's been getting more pressure in the pass rush the past couple of weeks. Not quite the same as his 3-sack game in week 1, but yeah. Then the interior or D line too, like Ed Oliver, he can rush the passer. He hasn't been awesome at that this year. I would love to see everybody, but whenever you have a guy like Von Miller out there, that can't hurt you.
Yeah, the interior a lot of times is the key, right? I mean, if you can really get pressure up the middle, that's going to make this defense all the much better and more dangerous to do things. I think that it will be interesting to see Von Miller. He gets a kind of a nice little vacation mid. He plays a few games, gets his feet wet in the season, then boom, take a break and now come back, after 4 weeks off, and it kind of I want to see how like rejuvenating it is for him because I think he may come out with a chip on his shoulder this week and try to make a big impact.
I'm curious to see if they use him as much as they were before the suspension, just because guys, if they do have that break, I don't think when he was suspended, I don't think he's even allowed in the building, right, when they're suspended. So I'm curious if they kind of ease them into it the next week or two again, just kind of like how they do in the preseason maybe. But knowing Von Miller, he is a veteran that would maybe know hey, I got to keep myself in shape here and be ready for the rest of the season. Before we get to the next question, we can pop that one that you actually just popped up here.
I just meant to start, yeah. But...
No, we'll pop it up here. We kind of talked about this a little bit. How can the Bills keep from getting burned up the middle in short yardage, like Kelsey type openness? For me, I think that's kind of what they not necessarily want, but that is just the way that they play. They are that bend, don't break. They'll give you that underneath all day, but when you need something else, you're not going to really get it. So I don't think they necessarily they'd rather be ready and prepared to not give anything deep rather than giving that underneath stuff to Jonnu Smith or whoever. So that's really how I look at it. Lance, what do you?
Yeah, let's think about it a little bit, right? I mean, obviously the big plays happen when guys get outside and can go up the hash and things like that. In my mind, there's some plays do break up the middle for big gains, but typically when things are contained into the middle of the field, you have the most people being able to converge on that ball carrier. So you want to keep things there around the middle where they're most accessible and where people can kind of gang tackle at that point. So I think that's really the basis and the premise of the Bills defense here is to give that up, but take away the other things, and that's how they're able to prevent kind of those big plays because you can't cover everything on every play, so you have to pick your battles, and I think they're comfortable telling people they can get stuff there, but they're not going to get the big hitters. So I agree 100%. I was chomping at the bit to say that, and I'm glad you said it well. So.
Yeah, and a lot of the Kelsey type openness is just a lot of Patrick Mahomes too. Just because a lot of times that happen when the play breaks down. Mahomes is so good at getting outside of the pocket, evading the pass rush, and like gives his guys time to just kind of freelance out there and find open space. And that's what those guys do so well together. So yeah, it's a lot of that comes down to the D line. Like if you have a shot to get him, like you got to get him. Tua's not going to move around that much for stuff to break down like that, but yeah, like just the D line like has to get home when they get home. They can't just force them off the spot and allow him to get outside and make something happen. Same thing people say about Josh Allen. Don't let him escape to his right because only bad things are going to happen. Same thing when you face a guy like Mahomes. Tua not as much, but like the Kelsey like openness. What I was going with there.
Yeah. Well, all right. We're gonna go on to our next question. The last question before we go into who needs to step up, who will be the defensive MVP. I did see a couple other questions in there. Sorry, guys, but we would.
Yeah, we'll get to them. We might get to them a little bit. If not,
yeah, we're gonna try our best. But like I said,
coming, but we're gonna.
You guys are doing awesome in the comments. They're doing amazing. Love it.
Yeah, love it.
But next question here. We always hear a lot about what the offense is doing right, what the offense isn't doing right. Very rarely do you see stuff about the defensive play calling, at least compared to maybe how the defensive players are playing, at least compared to the offense, in my opinion. So my question to you guys, we're going to start with Scott. We're about halfway through the season. Does Bobby Babich, does he need to change his game plan at all? Do you think there's anything that you've been watching throughout the season and like, I wish they would really fix that? Or do you think, at this point, just keep playing how you're playing?
I don't know if there's anything they need to change a ton. Sometimes in games it feels like that they're not that aggressive early on. Like they're kind of like getting their feet wet, feeling their way into it, and then showing the more exotic stuff like later on when it matters a little bit more. And so I guess I'm okay with that. But yeah, like we said, like that bend don't break mentality has really seemed to work pretty well. Like they're middle of the pack in every defensive category, but then they're top 5 in scoring defense. Like they just don't give up points. Like they're okay giving up yards, just don't give up the points. So I think so far, like the defense is exactly where we want them to be. Again, like it all just kind of depends. Like the defense, like you said, is built like give up some running yards, try not to give up the big plays, and I think they've done a really good job at that. So there's nothing I can really say that I would like to see them change because they're 6-2, things are going pretty well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it type thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you got to stick with your defensive philosophy and stick with what works. And I think, they're just trying to execute their game plan each week, which, isn't a ton different from week to week. It's really about contain, don't give up that major play and, come downhill and make the tackle. And that's really a simple version of the Bills defense is, once the person catches it, don't let them get the yak and get them on the ground as soon as possible. And so, I like that. Between the 20s, they do give up some things here and there, but then once they're able to tighten down and there's not that threat of really beating them deep over the top, they can really kind of come down on you. And we've seen a bunch of turnovers in that range.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I agree with you guys. It's just like, the biggest difference is the red zone defense for me. The red zone defense has been pretty good this year. And if you're going to force teams to kick field goals all day, odds are most of the time, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, you're not going to beat Josh Allen if you're kicking field goals all day. You're not going to do that. So if they ended up just keeping it the way that they are, I'm fine with that. I feel like the only thing I would maybe say is that the beginning of games sometimes can be a little rough for the defense, but they make that adjustment so fast where you can't really complain too much about the entire game plan, because they give them a drive or two. They say, okay, well, now we see what you're going to play like, and we're just going to shut you down the rest of the game. So for me, that's really, I guess, the only thing that I can even think of right now for the defense of like, hey, this is really the only thing that's been bothering a lot of people is just the beginning of games can be a little bit rough when it comes to just giving up points. But at the end of the day, if that's all they're giving up is first quarter points, again, you're usually going to lose to Josh Allen if you're just scoring in the first and second quarter and you're not scoring in the third and the fourth. So, yeah, Bobby Babich, I think he's been great. I know McDermott made that joke about, the defensive play calling is better than last year, which who knows if that actually is a joke or not. But yeah, he's done a great job. He's really making a case for himself. And he was a guy that a lot of people were excited about to see this year, to see how he did call the defense. And I think he's done a phenomenal job. So, let's move on, though. It's the last two questions before we get into my 1 minute, and then we get into the offense a little bit. As always, every week, who needs to step up? Who will be the defensive MVP? Who would like to go first? Whoever puts their hand up first gets to go first.
Scott can go.
Cool. My who needs to step up is going to be just both linebackers, Dorian, Bernard, assuming that's them, and Bernard is good to go, just because they have their hands full with this kind of like the toss, sweep, run scheme that the Dolphins run. Like, they have to get lateral, they have to get across the field quick, they have to get through blocks, they have to blow those up, because if they're able to get the edge, we talked about H.A., like, he's a track guy, he's gone. So need the linebackers to help keep the run game contained. Like I said, we're okay with giving up some yards, but we can't let them run all over us. And then also they got to think about covering, because the Dolphins receivers are all very fast, with the exception of OBJ. That's just because he's old. And then defensive MVP, I'm going to go with Rasul Douglas. I think he makes a big play this week. I think he gets his first pick. He's probably going to be the one that's on Tyreek Hill a lot of the time, especially if Benford is banged up. Think he's going to play, but he's not going to be 100%. So I'm going to go with Rasul Douglas for MVP.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ed Oliver stepping up and really goes for whoever's playing interior defensive line, because Tua threw 38 passes last week in his first week back in action, and it seems like they're willing to throw the ball a bunch. I don't know how willing they'll be against Buffalo, given maybe their perception that they can have a good matchup in the run game, but that even furthers my point for the interior defensive line and Ed Oliver to make an impact there. So if you can get penetration early on, really whether it's a run or a pass doesn't matter, but if you get that penetration, you can negate the speed of Achane, and then you can also disrupt Tua's timing, like they've done so well in the past. So force him to move out of the pocket and change his throwing angles, and then that obviously will get him off his. Once you get him off his spot, he's very beatable, and has not done well from there. So that's really the key, and I think it all starts from Ed Oliver in the middle, and then the MVP, I think, is going to be Terrell Bernard coming back and just being that anchor, being able to play fast sideline to sideline and make those tackles. I know Dorian's done well in leading the team in tackles at times here, but I think that Bernard comes in and makes a pretty big statement.
Yeah, I think I've been back and forth on this, and after you guys' answers, I might take a little bit of a cheap answer. I'm going to go with the special teams. I do count them as the defense, but special teams, I think, going to need to step up here.
They're their own segment. Don't loop them in.
Yeah, well, if anybody plays fantasy, they count together, so I'm counting them.
Are they the defense when they're returning kicks?
Defense /
yeah, but nobody returns kicks anymore, so it doesn't even matter. Either way,
they changed the whole
I'll go
rule
with
to
a
make people
different one.
return.
All right, I'll go with a different one. I'm gonna go with interior defensive line. Then I know that Lance kind of just talked about the defensive line as a whole a little bit.
Tell us more about it.
I just think you're going to have to get a good push. Scott, you've been saying it all show about how they're going to have to disrupt that timing. Like Lance also said here, you got to get to Tua. You got to get a good push up front. and you just got to make a difference. And I'm going to go with AJ Epinesa as my MVP. So AJ Epinesa, he's had a great game. I believe 2 weeks ago he had 2 sacks, or well, should have had 2 sacks a few weeks ago, and then we all know what happened with that one. So I just think AJ Epinesa, he got the contract this offseason. He started to really kind of come in and make some more plays here. So I'm going to go with AJ Epinesa. I think he'll have a strip sack this week against Tua, and it's not a blindside this week because he is a lefty and AJ usually plays on the right side. So we'll see. Maybe it'll be one of those tackle as you're tackling him, just rip the ball out type of strip sacks. So yeah, I'll go with AJ Epinesa. But yeah. So it is time though to move on to 1 minute, and I believe it is my turn.
Move on from that weak answer.
All right. How important is special? No, I'm joking. So my 1 minute this week, I do want to talk a little bit about Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano this week. They both, as we know, have been injured the past few years, battled a couple different injuries. So I just want to talk to you guys about when it gets to playoff time, who to you is the most important to have healthy? Obviously, we're hoping and praying that both of them are there. But if you had to say, hey, one of them is more important than the other, which one would you say? Personally, I would say Matt Milano. I just think overall he is an overall better player. I know Terrell Bernard being your Mike might make people say that. But for me, Matt Milano is just that much of a difference maker in pass coverage, in the run game, can get after the quarterback when you send him on a blitz. Just overall, he is a phenomenal player. I mean, top tier linebacker in the league when healthy. Hopefully he can come back and be that same player. But I'm going to go with Matt Milano. So let me know what you guys think down below. And yeah, excuse me, Matt Milano or Terrell Bernard, as I'm choking on my own spit here. So what do you guys got?
I think it's AJ Klein. No, I'm kidding. Last year in the playoffs, they didn't have either of them. So this year I would like to have at least one of them. But if I had to pick one, I would go Terrell Bernard, just because, like Lance alluded to earlier, he calls the defense. He's the Mike. Like, he's the guy getting everybody organized. He is the lone captain on defense. I think that speaks to something too. And they haven't had Milano for the better part of 2 seasons now. And they kind of, like, obviously he's such a good player. You can never, like, replace his production. But, like, they've done a pretty good job of, mitigating that loss. So yeah, I would go Terrell Bernard just because of the leadership, the calling, the defense, and he's a damn good football player too.
Yeah, I agree for that reason as well, with Terrell Bernard being that guy in the middle that is very important to the Bills' success, calling the plays and things like that. So I think you have to appreciate what Bernard's brought. He was voted captain for a reason during this season, and Milano has been out for a while, and the Bills have still had success without him. Now, could they be better? Sure, it's going to be great if they're both healthy. But they've played a majority of the last season and a half or more without him anyway. So I think that you got to take Bernard in this segment, in this choice.
Yeah. Ben, you got anything else on that before we move along?
I got nothing. No, I mean, like I said, I do get the argument of Terrell Bernard. It's such a tough choice. I mean, they're both phenomenal players, but yeah, your Mike is a big one. So it's back and forth for me. I leaned Matt Milano, but I completely get the reasoning behind Terrell Bernard. Either way, just hoping and praying that both of them are healthy when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving along to the Bills' offense, which looked pretty good last week going into Seattle and putting up a ton of points. But the Dolphins, they have a top 5 pass defense so far this season. Some of that could be because they've been getting blown out a lot, so other teams just haven't been passing the ball. But, they do have some solid guys back there. Our old friend, cornerback Jalen Ramsey. They got Jordan Poyer, our even better friend. He hasn't been that great this season, but still, he's going to know the Bills' offense pretty well from going against it every day for 7 years. So what do you guys think? Is concerned at all about the Dolphins' pass defense, concerned about the Bills' ability to throw the ball? Lance, we'll start with you.
No, not concerned really about that. I think, the first time we played them, they didn't get a sack, had 6 pressures, 30% pressure rate on Josh Allen. Josh Allen has the fewest sacks taken in the league this season, or the offensive line has given up the fewest amount of sacks in the league this year, at least we'll say that. And I think that it's a good matchup, strength on strength, and I got to favor the Bills here.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always a little bit of a worry when it comes to facing a good passing defense, just because, again, even though we're this much into the season and he only got one interception, we do know Josh Allen can get into modes of sometimes turning the ball over a little bit too much. I'm not really super worried, but at the end of the day, it's always going to be in the back of my head. But they're playing well. They got good matchups here. Cooper, I know he's been hurt, but he'll most likely play again and should be fine. But either way, Khalil Shakir's been getting involved. I believe he had 10 targets last game and 7 targets the game before that. So, we got guys that can go out and ball, and Josh Allen's making good decisions. I know last week he had that interception, and it just happened to get beat by a good corner. So at the end of the day, he's taking care of the ball. It will be in the back of my head all the time that he can turn the ball over here and there, but until he has a game where he's having two or three interceptions, I can't really say much about being overly concerned against a good pass defense.
So as far as we're concerned, we're not concerned. Shout out to John Robert here. He's kind of our every week chat room producer kind of guy. So if you can, guys, go out there and share it on Facebook, like it on Facebook, give us a like on X and repost on X, and then get over to YouTube, help that YouTube channel grow, give us a like and subscribe to that Built in Buffalo channel. We'd really appreciate that. And the support is always great. Shout out again to our sponsors, Buffalo Belia Sports and More. Some great items on their Facebook page. Go check them out. They're also over at the TSE big show right now. And then shout out to Monster Energy, the official energy partner of Built in Buffalo. We also do tailgates every home game over at the Big Tree Inn with the Water Buffalo Club 716. So shout out to Water Buffalo Club and the Big Tree Inn. Head over there, get some free Monster on game days. We're going to be over there again on Sunday. I'll be out there setting up at 7:00. If anyone wants to come give me a hand, I'd be willing to take that too. So get on out there and come see us over at the Big Tree. And a lot of cool people. I mean, Steve Tasker's walking around a lot of times. Jay Remersma was there last home game, and I got to meet him. So a lot of guys from Germany were there. A lot of cool stuff happened at the Big Tree. So come on over and hang out with us there.
Yeah, Ben said if we get 1,000 likes, he'd shave his head. So make sure you hit the like button.
I'll bring my clippers to the Big Tree, and we will shave his head right there. And then he can wear my Water Buffalo hat for the rest of the night, so nobody has to see it.
I think it would take the Bills winning a Super Bowl for me to do that, to be honest. But
you heard it.
We'll
you have to give us 1,000 likes over the season, and Ben's gonna shave his head when the Bills win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, we'll do it at the season opener next year if it happens.
Amazing.
You wouldn't want to do it like in the summer when it's not quite as chilly?
Yeah, I wear hats a lot anyways, so it doesn't
you gotta get that. You gotta get that fresh season shave anyway, and then you grow out the repeat.
I gotta ask Dave which is better. If it's better to have it during the summer or the winter.
Oh, he has it at all times, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I gotta ask him which is better. But
so anyway, back to your regularly scheduled programming. The Bills last week had a really good game on the ground. James Cook has 450 yards, 7 touchdowns. So I know the numbers have changed a little bit since Amari Cooper came in. I saw a stat on X.com today, the everything site, that I wanted to highlight from our guy Jacob Gibbs, that the Bills pass rate over expectation before Amari Cooper was 20th in the league, and after Amari Cooper it's been first in the league. So huge jump just from getting one guy who really isn't fully in the offense yet. But the plan for this team was run the ball, feature James Cook, let James Cook, some may say. So Ben, we'll start with you. Do we think Buffalo has become a run-first team, and do we think that that's going to stick as the season goes on and these receivers keep stepping up?
I mean, 4 weeks ago, I probably would have said 100% yes. Now it's a little bit of a question because you're starting to see them air it out a little bit more and get more confidence in that passing game. Statistically, they still are, by NFL standards, a run-first team because they're bottom 10 in the league in pass percentage. But like we said, as the season goes on, I do expect them, and I think we've said this a couple of weeks ago, as the season goes on more and more, I think we expect them to again lean on the pass game as these guys get more involved, as Keon Coleman starts to get more confident, which we're seeing. Shakir's again now becoming that guy that we know he knew he could be. Cooper comes in and it helps it out. So statistically, by NFL standards, we are technically a run first team because again we're bottom 10 in the league in pass percentage, but you're still a team that has Josh Allen, and I think that by the end of the season that number will be even higher than it is right now. Right now it's at 51.1%, which again over half the time I guess you're passing it, but by NFL standards that is very low.
Yeah, you're going to see the majority of drives start with a handoff typically with this team. So I 100% think that they're a run first team, and actually Amari Cooper makes them more of a run first team because they, he opens up the field. He's not afraid to go out there and put a block on somebody. Keon Coleman, we saw last week, absolutely driving people into the bench, just crazy. So these guys are all the way bought into this thing, and I think it does. The run sets up the rest of this offense. Now, what we haven't seen a ton of overall is the play action, right? We've talked about not seeing a lot of play action to date. Now, last week, up to 24.3%, second highest of the season. So that's really, the Bills tend to be around 25% over the last few years. They did get up into 30% in the 2020 and 2021 season. So the last few years, though, they've been at around 25. So I think that, helping with Amari Cooper being out there so people can't stack the box as much allows them to run the ball more and be more effective at it. And then starting to hit some more play action and really open that part of the game up. And I think they're not going to necessarily go out there and do a ton of things that they don't need to do if they can beat people just with a plain Jane game plan. Why would they go out there and show a bunch of things on film if they don't have to? And we'll see how that works out. They do have to be quick to making adjustments, I think. And if the things that are kind of plain Jane aren't working, then you got to go switch it up and try to get something else going there and be more creative.
Yeah, and like you mentioned with the play action, the Bills like to take some shots out of play action. That's where they get a lot of big plays, and the only way play action is going to work is if you establish the run early. So yeah, I agree that they kind of become run first to set up the pass, if that makes sense. So yeah, agree with everything you said there. So similar question to what Ben said about the defense. About halfway through the season, the 17 games thing still throws me off. But does Joe Brady need to make any changes to his game plan at all? I'm going to go with one just real quick. The amount of times they've used two tight ends or just usually Dawson Knox at all. We've seen Dawson Knox get a little bit more involved the past couple of weeks. He had a touchdown in the Jets game. He had that nice big catch on the first play of the Seahawks game. And this past week in the Seahawks game, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid played the same number of snaps, 41, about 54% each. So I don't know exactly how many of those were together or singular or, whatever. And also game was a blowout. So take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. But I would like to see more two tight end stuff. And just maybe more Dawson Knox getting involved at all because he is a playmaker. He can make plays, and I think it's someone who may be being a bit underutilized right now. But yet so many other guys who are making plays too. It's a lot of mouths to feed, so I get it. But would like to see some more Dawson Knox. Lance, what about you?
This is about Joe Brady's game planning, or we're stepping up in MVPs. Sorry, zoned out a little bit.
Yeah. Joe Brady's game planning.
I like it so far. I think that, he's going to have to get more creative. Like I mentioned, I don't think that you have to, that you can just continue to beat people, excuse me, this early, this later, as we get later in the season, especially if we get opponents like KC and San Francisco and Detroit, you're going to have to get more creative and things like that. So I definitely think that you have to switch things up here and there, but I don't think, other than like we talked about, I think keeping with the play action, keeping that around 25 to 30% is good for this offense. Josh Allen's best when he's doing that. So I think you have to continue to rely on the run game, and then the play action off of that really helps. And, I think they're going to have to show some fight when they get behind. As ultimately, they're not going to be ahead of every game, and it'd be nice to see these guys, come out and be able to, win a shootout and be able to go out there and show that they can score on the Chiefs defense, let's say in that game, because, that's been the strength for the Chiefs. So they only need to score 24 points because the Bills can't seem to score more than that on them. So we'll see how that pans out when we get to that game. But I think overall, Joe Brady's done a fine job. And I think, there's some questionable calls we've all talked about already, but overall, his game plans and his approach are consistent. And I don't think he's trying to be flashy, other than that one play again with the Ravens there where they almost got Allen killed. But otherwise, it has kind of stuck true to himself and just been solid.
Yeah, I think for the most part, yeah, he's been very solid. I'm still gonna just say it that I think first down runs need to. I like that they want to run the ball and I like they want to stick with it, but especially early game, I'd like to see them coming out throwing it a little bit more. It just seems a little bit predictable again in the beginning of the games. We've had slow starts this season on the offensive side, and some of that does seem to be because, again, we're getting into 2nd and 10, 2nd and 9, and I know James Cook has been running the ball great. I know Ray Davis has been running the ball great. Don't abandon the run, but at least early on, I'd like to see them switching it up and just getting the passing game going a little bit more. And that doesn't necessarily mean taking shots downfield. That, again, means just get the ball out, get it 5 yards, get 4 yards, get 3 yards, mix it up, because then that helps with what Lance loves, which, again, play action, which Josh Allen also loves, which we all love because Josh Allen's doing well. So I just think that running the ball, as much as I'd like this team to stick with the run, I do want to see them passing the ball a little bit more. At the end of the day, you brought in Cooper for a reason. You have Khalil Shakir. You spent a first-round pick on Dalton Kincaid. Dawson Knox, I'd like to see a little bit more involved as well. So I just would like to see these guys utilized as much as possible. And I think, yes, James Cook's running the ball well. Yes, Ray Davis is running the ball well. But I'd like to again see, especially early down runs, just not completely eliminated, but again, just minimized a little bit compared to what it is.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw up John's comment here. I would also like to see Curtis Samuel get involved more. Like everybody has said, I don't think they're using him very well. I don't think anybody is, and he was kind of our big free agent acquisition on offense. And recently, so many other guys have been playing well that it hasn't really mattered. But yeah, come playoff time, crunch time, we're going to need Curtis Samuel. So agree with you there, John. I would also like to see him get involved more and maybe used in some better ways than just seeing how far behind the line of scrimmage they can throw him the ball every week.
I think he's going to wait and break out against the Chiefs.
That'd be fine. Yeah,
maybe he'll
the game's coming up.
Hero.
So
Be the playoff hero this year.
Playoffs
would be fine. All right, so moving on to a segment we do every week. Who needs to step up? Who will be the MVP? Ben, you start first.
Who needs to step up? I'm going to go with – this one's a tough one for you, but I'm going to go with just whoever's guarded by Jalen Ramsey the most. And who knows if that will be Cooper. It probably will be Cooper at the end of the day, so I'm going to basically say Amari Cooper. I just think because you have a guy like Jalen Ramsey, who's not the same guy that he was 5 years ago, but he's still a very good corner in this league. If it's still a top corner in this league, you're going to have to get something on him, because if he can just take Amari Cooper out of the game, that is going to hurt the offense to a certain degree. So I think I'm going to go with Amari Cooper, who needs to step up. Although at the end of the day, there's not really many guys that I'm like, yeah, they really need to step up for the offense to win this game. Because if Cooper could go out there and not even have a single catch, and I could still see the Bills putting up 30 plus on the Dolphins. So at the end of the day, I don't think there's anybody that necessarily needs to step up to a point. Maybe like the defense, somebody I think will need to step up. So I'll go with Amari Cooper this week. MVP, though, I'm going to go with the guy who owns the franchise and owns the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to go with Josh Allen. It might be a cop-out answer. I know that Scott's not been loving my answers for MVP and needs to step up this week, but I'm going to go with Josh Allen just because, again, he owns this franchise. You might as well just, instead of calling it Hard Rock Stadium, just call it Josh Allen Stadium because he owns that team. So, Josh Allen.
Yeah, I'm going to say that the tight ends need to step up this week. Not that they've done a terrible job by any means in previous weeks, but I think just in this matchup, you're going to need to see them control the middle of the field with Javon Holland being doubtful. I think they can really take advantage of matchups through there and pick on his replacement. And then the MVP is going to be James Cook. He's going to keep the team on schedule, ahead of schedule, with a lot of good runs, and also be effective in the passing game. So I think James Cook is the MVP of the offense.
Yeah, step up. I'm going to go Tyler Bass in special teams. No, I'm kidding.
Well, Tyler Bass can count for offense.
He's special teams.
That would actually be a good one for the offense. I have said Tyler Bass.
Teams.
I actually did say Tyler Bass a couple weeks ago, by the way. So let it slide then.
Well, yeah, because it was one person. You tried to take 26 of them. Now, step up for me, interior offensive line. I said Connor McGovern last week. He played really well, but Calais Campbell has been playing at a really high level for the Dolphins on the interior D-line. I think he has like 5 tackles for a loss, which is by far more than anybody else on that Dolphins defense, which really hasn't been playing very well. But like we said earlier, it's hard to get up and play well when your offense doesn't put up any points. Ask the Jets about that over the last 3 seasons. So, yeah, interior offensive line against Calais Campbell, because he's been in the league a long time. He's been a game wrecker for a long time. And then MVP, I'm going to go with Khalil Shakir. As you mentioned, Jalen Ramsey, not quite who he was a few years ago, but he is still really good. And the Dolphins a little bit weaker, I would say, the interior of their defense. They are out of the exterior. So Khalil Shakir in the slot. And each week since he came back from that ankle injury, he's been playing better and better, had 100 yards this past week in Seattle. So I think Khalil Shakir has a big game and is our offensive MVP. You guys got anything else before we go over to my 1 minute?
Nothing about anything that you said. The only thing I will say, John, you better have knocked on wood after you typed this, by the way, because if he misses this week, we know that you'll be here because you're our non-official producer. So knock on wood. But no, I got nothing else.
Yeah, that's a good
All
one.
right,
When you said Jalen Ramsey, that popped in my head, and I couldn't resist. So, let's get over to Scott's 1 minute, and I'll be professional here.
Okay. My 1 minute is just going to be kind of a James Cook appreciation minute. They said that he was going to be a big part of the offense this season, and he so far has lived up to expectations. He missed the game with that toe injury, so his stats are a little bit lower, but he's still on pace for over 1,000 yards. He has 7 rushing touchdowns, which is crazy. I think he had 2 rushing touchdowns all of last season, and that was kind of the knock on him, that he couldn't do it on the goal line. We used Josh Allen as our goal line running back, but you saw him this past Sunday in Seattle. He finished a run on the ends on the goal line, trucked the linebacker, knocked his helmet off, had one of those physical, angry runs, and then also catching the ball. He has 14 receptions, only 1 drop. I believe it was a big drop. That would have been a touchdown, but hey, that's okay. Only 1 drop, big improvement from what we saw in the past. Another part of, concern for him. So James Cook has stepped up this season, been a big part of the offense. So just, kind of wanted to shout him out for, kind of being a running back in the NFL. Sometimes there's an unsung hero role, but yeah, James Cook has been awesome so far this season, and hopefully that continues.
Yeah, I made him the offensive MVP this week for that reason. I think he's done a phenomenal job. He's a great running back. I'm going to be interested to see, if he can stick with the Bills for long term. That's a discussion for another time. But I do think, he's been very, very good, maybe above what people might have expected. I think some people thought he would take a back seat in this offense for some reason. And given his workload last year, and they're continuing it this year, it seems like he's been a bright spot for sure.
Yeah, I was one of those people, Lance, that wasn't sold on him 100%. I knew he was a great player. I didn't think he'd take a back seat necessarily, but I wasn't completely sold on him. And this year he has proved anybody that had any doubts in their mind about him being a top tier running back in this league, he's put him to bed there. So yeah, him and Ray Davis as well, because I know this is a James Cook shout out, but man, both of the backs have been phenomenal, and I hope they can be a big 1-2 punch, especially when it gets to playoff time. So yeah.
Right on. Well, that really does it for what we had scheduled for y'all. We appreciate everyone in the comments. Again, if you can like this on Facebook, X, and on YouTube, if you can share it on Facebook, repost on X, and give it a share from YouTube as well, we'd appreciate it. Love all the comments. Definitely helps And we appreciate you. Again, we'll be out there on Sunday, tailgating at the Big Tree Inn. I'll be there, I should say, and then we'll see if Ben gets back in town in time, and some of the other Built-in Buffalo folks will be around. And Water Buffalo Club 716 is there, and the Big Tree has great wings and atmosphere, if nothing else. So head on over. 97 Rock is next to us too. I got a couple of pizzas from Imperial last week at the tailgate, so come on out, have a slice of pizza with me or something. I would really appreciate all the support and score some free Monster Energy, so that'll work out. So for that, let's just take 1 second to see what Scott's liking for a bet this week.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I gave out some winners last week again. But yeah, college football, I like Washington +2 against USC. The game's at Washington. Washington hasn't been home in a month, so they're going to be excited to get back. USC, terrible on the road. I know they've lost 3 games on the road. I don't think they've won any on the road because the USC win was neutral site. So I think Washington wins that one. And I also like the over in the Iowa-Wisconsin game. Iowa's offense better than it has been in the past. Wisconsin's offense is okay, and then Wisconsin's defense isn't the greatest. So I like the over there, and then like I said, Washington +2.
Yeah, I like Penn State +3 against Ohio State. Like them getting that. I probably would take a money line as well, but I definitely like them getting 3 points there.
I'm looking around here. I'm gonna go with an underdog one, and I'm gonna go with, I think, Duke. If you were looking for a long shot, I think Duke could end up doing it against Miami. Miami struggled a little bit. I believe it was last week they struggled a little bit against an unranked team. They still got the win, but if you're looking for a long shot, that might be one to just think about. I still end up at the end of the day, would not be shocked if Miami cruises to a victory because it is a ranked versus unranked. But if you're looking for an upset this week, because there's been plenty in college football as we've seen this year, Miami could be a team that potentially could be on the upset alert.
You're taking Duke money line as a 21-point dog.
Hey man, there's been plenty of underdog. I'm not actually gonna take it.
It's not basketball, right?
Scott, how many underdogs have there been this week this year that have been 20 plus? All right, come on. You are the football guy. You know it. You're the college football guy. Well, you're both, but
he gave you the out there. Scott's taking Duke +21.
It also happened to be just
Ben's taking Duke +21, right?
I'll take that. It's actually +20. Yeah, it is +20. 20 and a half. I'll take that. I'll take it right now. I'm gonna bet it right now.
Take it.
Place.
And run. All right. Appreciate you guys. I've been up since 3:30 in the morning, so you've gotten a nice raw edition of Lance Nelson here. Once again, the president of Built-in Buffalo, really appreciate everything that y'all do to support us, and head out to our social media pages and like our content there, and follow our other shows throughout the week here. Going to have Red Zone Report on Sunday, Buffalo Against the World on Mondays. We're going to do some Twitter Spaces on Tuesday as well. So if y'all want to join us on X there and do Spaces a Tuesday around 9:15, usually we're rolling that out. Also, we have a Sabres content podcast, Two Goalies, One Mic there on Tuesdays, so check them out. Wednesday is Going Deep, obviously. Thursday is a busy day. We got, I think T does 2 different things there maybe for us, and then obviously the Hoof podcast, and we got Not Your Average, or Not Another Buffalo podcast in there here and there as well. So just a lot of content coming out on Thursdays, and then we'll be back here again next Friday. So appreciate y'all, and go Bills.
Go Bills.